Hello, everyone. My name is Rick van Bruggen from Neotechnology, and here I am again recording another podcast episode for our Graphistania podcast. And today I'm joined by someone from the City of Lights, Paris, Florent Biville. Thank you for joining us, Florent.
Thanks for having me.
Fantastic. Thank you for coming online. And yeah, Florent, maybe the best place to start is for you to introduce yourself to our listeners. I know you've been very active in the Neo4j community, but maybe you can introduce yourself.
Sure. So, as you said, I'm based in Paris and I work there in a company called Criteo. So, just in a few words, Criteo is one of the rare non-American companies that can compete with Google and Facebook. So, but on the domain of online advertising and more specifically in the domain of retargeting. So, basically, we're just trying to promote the best quality advertisement for users at scale. So that's basically what we do.
Wow. Is that a French company, Florent? Or is it,
Yes, three co-founders are French, and so now we have offices all around the world. And engineering is mostly based in Europe, but we have offices, in the US, in South America, in Turkey, in England, in France, and so many countries I forget, but yeah, we are in a big expansion and we're hiring also, by the way.
That's a nice plug. Very well done. Hey, Flora. What's your relationship to the wonderful world of graphs? Then, how did you get into graphs? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. During my first job, actually, that's the time I first heard about Neo4j. Also, we didn't use it directly. We were interested in a graph database for fraud detection because we were selling video games activations, and every time there was a fraud detected, it was usually detected too late, so we had to pay chargebacks from the bank. So it's lots of cash wasted, and also the activation keys could not be reused afterwards. So we were basically burning activation key stock. So it was really a huge waste, and we were trying to push a lot of efforts into improving the fraud detection for our video games we were selling.
Mm-hmm.
So that was basically my first contact with graph database.
How long ago is this?
So it was, I guess, in 2010, something like that. So
that's a long time ago.
yes. Yeah. And then afterwards, I continued for my personal project. I really wanted to dig into that because I don't know. I just saw 5 minutes of Cypher and I said, "Wow, that's so powerful and so interesting," even if the language was still young. And so yeah, I pushed. I tried Neo4j for my personal projects later on, and then I joined a small company. We became partner with Neo4j. I guess we were one of the first in France actually to become partner. Mm-hmm. And I continued with some consulting gigs with startups or bigger companies, sometimes with Neo4j employees as well. So that's how basically I spent between 2012 and maybe until 1 or 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm. And you've been developing some open source software around Neo4j as well, right? Liquid Graph. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about that as well.
Sure. So Liquid Graph is based on the project called Liquibase. So Liquibase is a migration tool for relational databases. So the ideas and the concepts are very similar in Liquid Graph, and the idea is the same. Basically, you define your migrations in Cypher, and it will so you organize them in change sets, and then your change set will be executed incrementally, and that's how you can manage your model migration, because that's not always easy. That's because Neo4j is schema optional, so it's very flexible, but sometimes maybe it's too much flexible and you need some structure to be sure your model evolves in the good way.
Yeah, so absolutely. I always say, with freedom comes responsibility, right? You have to have something overlooking the schemaless nature, right?
Yes, exactly. I couldn't have said it better, actually. So yes, we are in active development right now. We've done some releases already. We are working on some new features to get a bit more on par with Liquibase. So we're not as complete as Liquibase yet. We really worked on the main priority features, but we are getting there, and hopefully in the following weeks we should have a new release with even better features, especially when we deal with large data sets.
Wow.
So
Sounds really cool. And this is all open source, right? You can find this online, and you can just take a look at it and use it if it's useful for you.
Yeah, absolutely. You
Yeah,
just go to liquidgraph.org, and that's a starting point.
sweet. So can I ask you, the question that I ask every one of my interviewees, why? Why did you get into graphs? And you mentioned that it was quite some time ago, but what was the main thing that attracted you to get into the world of graphs?
Well, when I started, so it was really, how can I say, like the developer in me. I just saw the power of Cypher. I mean, wow, that I could express complex queries so easily that I don't know, just that really Cypher was the selling point for me. Just to see how easy it was to create a graph, how easy it was to express queries. Even though I didn't have any specific project in mind necessarily, just the power of it and the flexibility of it just got me into it almost immediately.
Okay.
That's really what got me into graphs at first.
hmm And did that love evolve, or how do you feel about that now? Is it still
Well,
Cypher mainly, or is there other things that you really think are more important?
Well, I think especially with the version 3, I mean, the Neo4j really becomes more, more and more powerful, especially in terms of because before, yes, you have like unmanaged extensions or server plugins. So even though I was a Java developer and had no problem with that, it still didn't feel as natural as with other databases. I would say so. The latest additions of Neo4j3 really makes it like a robust mature product. Like what you would expect from a database, like binary protocols, some drivers, and some well-defined way of extending the behavior.
Yeah.
So
Have you looked at the procedures yet? I suppose you have.
yeah, absolutely,
Yeah.
and that even gave me the idea of another small open source project I created. Because when I started playing with the procedures like a month ago or something,
Okay.
and I noticed so the runtime was very nice. I mean, whenever I made a mistake and I deployed the procedure, I really got a detailed message, and then I thought, oh, okay, that's nice. The runtime gave me the error. What if I could get the error earlier? And that's how I got the idea of writing a kind of compiler to remain simple, that basically whenever you compile your procedure, even before you deploy it to Neo4j, you will get detailed feedback about what you did wrong or not.
That
So I
sounds
just
very useful.
yes, and I just added that to the repository of Neo4j awesome procedure or something, APOC.
Yes, APOC. Yeah. The
And,
name
and
we are so good at naming. It's fantastic.
I'm no better, so I won't even start on that. I wouldn't do that.
Exactly. So, Florent, maybe just to approach another and maybe final subject. Where do you think
Yes.
this is going? What does the future hold, both for the graph industry, but also for things like Liquid Graph or some of your other projects? How do you see the wonderful world of graphs evolving?
Well, first, I think it's gonna at least what started with version 3, and I'm sure it's going to continue this way, is you will have more and more integration with external tools. So especially with the rework of the JDBC driver, for instance, it will definitely help see Neo4j used in, I don't know, with some BI tools or even more. So
Yeah.
that looks very promising. And hopefully, I don't know, for Liquid Graph, hopefully, so we will reach a version 1.0 and see people use it and report. That's all I hope on my side, and maybe more contributors as well. But but
Yeah.
but when I see, for instance, Panama Papers, that's a very great example of how Neo4j could be used, and it's great to see. A big public example of something that is not a social graph. I mean, that's very interesting, and I'm sure we will have more and more examples like this, maybe in journalism and maybe in other fields.
Absolutely, I hope so too. I mean, for the journalism part, I don't know if you saw that, but we've actually announced a journalism accelerator program, whatever that means. But it's all about helping journalists or publishing organizations get started with Neo4j. I think I'm hoping that we'll see a lot more of that as well. So that will be great. Very cool. All right, Flora, as I told you before, we like to keep these podcasts fairly short. So I
Hmm.
want to thank you for coming online and spending some time with me. I'm sure you'll get a lot of interest once we publish the Bubble podcast for things like Liquid Graph. And I look forward to meeting you again at one of the community events at the meetups, maybe.
Yes, sure.
Absolutely. Thank you, Flora.
Thanks a lot.
Bye.